necessarily always beat you, but at least be able to go blow for blow.
I mean, wasn't there like almost a scary position maybe for Temple Storm, considering how Red Canids seemed to do in the first game against Fnatic? It felt like that was one of the better Red Canids we've seen. As much as nothing went their way at all, like, they still almost got a few kills, had some rotational advantages.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small sample size, of course, but those 2 games that we've seen from Red Canids is probably the most well-played that we've seen them play in a long time, except against L5, which was at MSB. So if they can keep up that tempo, they could do well against Temple Storm. So we'll see how it goes here as we go straight into Dragonshire. This will be a battleground that Red Canids do enjoy going to, but Temple Storm does pretty okay here too. So Dahaka is the first one to be highlighted for the ban.
I'm just kind of fast-forwarding here and thinking, how does it feel for Tempo if they were to lose this series?
It'd be deflating.
I wonder if they can survive the shock, to be
I'll be honest, that's catastrophic if they do.
Yeah.
Like, if you really think about where they should be on the Western Clash and think about how North America would come in, that would be catastrophic.
I mean, think about what they've gone through in the last 6-7 weeks. They've had a role swap. They tried to change their identity as a team. They aren't playing it slow and methodical anymore. They're drafting more aggressive comps, but trying to fit it into the old way that they played the game. If you lose to Red Canids, you as a team start to question who you are.
I mean, it's the Western Clash. It's almost like the mid-season pit stop to BlizzCon, in essence. So, you know, there's still hope for them at the end of the tunnel, but yeah, it wouldn't be a great foretelling of maybe prospects down the line.
And though I mean, the biggest fear for me that with that kind of conversation point is that, yes, that is kind of the pit stop and that there is time for Tempo, but Tempo, if you look specifically within their performance only in the North American scene, there is a very blatant sign of improvement. No matter how bad or great they perform here, I am confident that they grew within their own play within the region. And so I fear if you take that step back and you consider where they're going next, it doesn't matter how much they can improve within their own region, because the problem isn't the region in their own growth. It's that something, international play or land, whatever it is holding them back.
And we're being critical because obviously Tempo Storm, they want to be a global team. They want to compete at the international level. So with them coming here, we want them to do well, and we're cheering for them. But their changes right now just haven't seemed to really come through.
I like this team.
Yes.
I like these guys. They're not particularly arrogant. They seem realistic. They've improved a lot. They do well in the region. I really want them to do well in this region, in this situation here. So let's see how it goes. That's why I'm so worried for them if they don't. And Red Canids is a formidable opponent for them.
The start of their draft looks pretty good, right?
Yes, it does.
Genji Uther coming in.
This is old MSB, one that's been around for a while, even with the nerfs. A Divine Shield into a Genji Dragon Blade is not something to ever laugh at. It is quite
it doesn't really matter how many charges of block you have.
You block everything.
If there's a Divine Shield. Lowered health pool, no problem. Here's my Dragon Blade.
We're just taking some of the draft pattern trends that we've seen from Tempo Storm out of the few games we got against them against Liquid. We're now looking at a map where wave clear is going to be overly relevant, and they've already committed their 1 and 2 picks into lack of wave clear. Granted, there are a lot of, again, the synergies, there's objective power between these picks. It makes sense that they've gone in that direction, but we can't ignore the fact that there's at some point they need to find a way to be able to rebuttal and recover from that, especially considering there is an absurd amount of macro pressure available levels 1 through 9 with this Johanna, Ariel, and Vala that Red Canids has obtained.
Yeah, I mean, Tempo Storm has this huge burden to achieve early game results that don't come easy.
Yeah.
You need the kills, you need the superior rotations, you need to solve this problem of this almost effortless Johanna, Ariel, and Vala push. And like you said, Genji, Uther, I mean, Genji doesn't get a good wave clear until level 16 when he gets final cut. And until that, Uther a little bit with Holy Fire at 4, but he needs to melee. That's risky against Vala. So
would the ban here be wanting to be something to disable extra support for Vala? What do you think?
I mean, that would be my first thought, but at the same time, I'm not totally convinced that maybe necessarily Red Canids is going to be the team to move into that direction immediately. But they still go that direction, right? Removal of the Zarya. She has been less popular overall of Phase 2, but you know, it's actually kind of satisfying to see this small bump in relevance for Zarya into this tournament.
Just a little bit, yeah.
She's popping up here at the Western Clash, so Zarya being taken away, but still Red Canids still have options to move into. You can move into a different support. You can pick up that Rhaegar if you need to, which is great with the Johanna, great with Volley. You can also, if you really wanted to, run with solo Ariel. A little bit on the difficult side, especially against a Genji, but doable. I am worried about that top lane for Red Canids. They need to pick someone that can be by themselves, self-sustain pretty well, because that's where I think Tempo Storm can get their kills if they're looking for the aggressive plays. If we have a Sonya come in from Red Canids, or even a Dahaka, you have a rotation from Genji, agile dismount, you can destroy. Oh, Dahaka been banned out, but still, the concept is still the same. Mouthfeel even.
Yeah, that's indeed the point. That's where Genji can shine. He needs a little bit of time to get good in the actual team fight.
Yeah.
But in terms of lane bullying, he is there for the top lane. So that's definitely a key point. But look at the smart ban by Red Canids. Removing Greymane removes much of wave clear possibility in a second damage dealer from Tempo Storm. So it looks like Red Canids is ready to expand upon their map dominance. Now, Falstad Stitches, pretty powerful counter arguments to the wave clear power struggle here.
Yeah.
I am absolutely terrified for whoever Red Canids puts up in that top lane now that the Falstat's been picked up. Already with the Uther Genji, traditionally, if you're looking for a gank composition, top is your first place to go because it's going to be at a mismatch. Red Canids is in an opportunity, I feel, in the draft right now to actually run a 3-2 where they ignore the vulnerability of that high probability gank because of their actual advantage into the wave clear right now. They at least, not necessarily a 3-2, but at least some kind of lane variance, a 2-1-2. Not give the traditional top lane staple there because Tempo, right now, their draft is begging for kills in that top lane. So even if maybe they don't draft into that direction, at least Red Canids has to identify that whatever that pick is there needs to be able to hold its own in a 1 versus 2 on 1 versus 3.
It feels like it's not only begging for kills in the top lane, but you've got Stitch's Uther with damage to follow up. So there's kills potential everywhere, really, for Tempo Storm.
It will be the Sonya, which I will say has a hard time with a top laner with a Genji coming in there. They can be pretty oppressive at knocking them down, but Sonya at the same time can handle herself in a 2v1 if she is able to get the whirlwind off. And looking over at the opposing team, the only one that has a stun really that can stop that right away if his Uther comes in for the gank. But at that point, you should be far enough away to where it might be okay.
Plus, Brightwing can pop in every now and then, help a bit with the healing, because the main issue for Sonya needs the central position in the wave to heal until she gets 7, maybe with Ferocious Healing. Brightwing can stay there for a while and then pop down again later. So you still have that strong 4-man. I like it.
I like your description of this. Pop in for a little bit, a spot of tea. Yeah. Good job, Brightwing. Get your cup in.
A cube of sugar.
Yeah. Li Ming comes in to round this out. So a lot of blow-up potential and a lot of kill potential, I feel, on the side of Tempo Storm.
Absolutely. I mean, their draft is rather straightforward in the approach at which they're trying to, manipulate the map and how teamfights are going to look to open. They've got not only a double reset, they've got the follow-up CC necessary with the Uther there for the Stitches, and a convenient global to be able to baby whenever anything goes sour, and also aid with that post-20 Dragonshire Blues.
It feels like they don't have the most conventional top lane solo by any means as the reinforcement comes up.
They can have Fawcett up there. He'll hang around and do what he can, clear out those lanes, etc. Build out season marks if he wants to, or even the Gathering Storm if you like to go that route.
Yeah.
But yes, the possibility for kills is very high for Tempo Storm. I mean, you look at Johanna, and she's one that you can read pretty well, and you can move around with those hooks. And the other 4 targets are all targets that you can blow up with that Li Ming Uther stun being available. So it will come down to our Stitches player landing those hooks.
So I'm getting the vibes that we're safely in the Tempo Storm camp here with the draft. Is that fair to say?
If you were to erase the names, I would disagree. But I don't necessarily think that the draft that we see out of Red Canids fits to their strengths overall, and that they'll necessarily have the teamwork to be able to deal with the, Dragonshire is a map, if you fall behind rotations, if you don't know how to recover, you can fall behind for an entire Dragonite phase. And if I expect to see that coming out from Red Canids, but if they do delay that and they accurately abuse the advantages of their composition, and you were to remove the names, I do lean more towards that of Red Canids.
Okay.
I think I'm actually on the opposite side. I'm going to go with Red Canids here. I thought their early game was pretty good against Fnatic, and if they can keep up here with that, Johanna in particular will start breaking down turrets and get control of the dragon in the beginning, they can move forward pretty well.
Final short thoughts, Grubby?
I like the draft for Red Canids, but I think Tempo is probably going to do pretty well in macro play. They've always done so, so I believe they can do it with the tools that they have given themselves. Their best draft yet.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. We'll check in with you throughout the series. For now, though, let's head over to game number 1 here between Red Canids and Tempo Storm.
Thank you, Kalaris. Kaldor and I are back here again for another series, except this time it's an elimination round.
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing. We have Tim now converted to Europe to an extent where in these games he's voting against NA.
Can I get a new casting partner? Is it too late?
You want Tim?
No. Bring me Dread back. No, we're going to have a lot of fun here.
Yeah.
Red Canids have been bringing the aggression out a lot, but still making sure that they have a global in all of their drafts so far so that they can still try to keep up with the lane soak as long as possible and then get into the fight when they're ready. But is the Brightwing and the Emerald Wind enough to actually deal with all of the aggression, the dive, the aggressive flies, the Genjis, the hooks, all of that Tempo Storm have at their disposal? It's
definitely an underdog story here right now, and for the Red Canids, if the draft can come through, is something that we're going to see pretty soon. I want to see a lot from Tempo Storm. We talked a bit after the series against Team Liquid, and I think they definitely had a good idea, but European teams didn't have too much trouble with them so far. I want to see Tempo Storm on a different level right now, so I have hopes for them to come through here, show their skills, and show us what they're made of. They're going up against the team to the left side. It's, of course, the Red Canids with Jay Schritte on Vala, Lito on Brightwing, Tulin on Johanna. We have Typhex on Sonya for the solo lane, and Vieira on Oriel. And the first North American team facing elimination at the Western Clash. It is Tempo Storm, with Falstad played by Caterpillar, Fury playing Stitches, Uther played by June, Cothenluck playing Li Ming, and finally Som back on his Genji. Yeah, so at this point already in the mid lane a bit of battles happening, but the one thing we have to look out for is of course the macro play. When we're talking Dragonshire, it is the map that takes the most coordination from any team, and this is one of the reasons why globals are so powerful here as well. Tempo Storm, they are known to be a team that can really rely on these global strategies, so they have to prove it here now against an underdog that is hungry to get a first win against a big name. And I wonder now, seeing that Som is going to be hanging out so much at the top lane, if we see Red Cannon switch over to a 2-1-2 of their own, Lethosaurus has the possibility of phase shifting up to help out Typhex in the top lane, or if Red Cannon just want to try to draw as many of the resources to Tempo Storm to the bottom lane as they can with that double support and the Vala to push, but it just doesn't have the same kind of push power that we would see with a Vala Ariel and then a Zarya with Feel the Heat. Yeah, exactly. So the Zarya banned out here for exactly that reason that you pointed out. If you can bring her into the draft over Brightwing, and that of course helps a lot for the push power. Brightwing on the other hand allows the top laner to be a little bit more aggressive, since you know in a pinch you can ask someone for help, so a quick teleport can help you out there. But it's definitely going to be interesting here in the early game how exactly that shakes up, especially with Genji, of course, potentially pressuring the top lane. But for now, it's the bottom lane where we see that pressure unfold. Excellent placement of the Arcane Flare, making sure you can get that extra damage. As Tempo Storm was retreating, and June did take a lot of damage in that regard. It's going to take him a little while to heal back up, but he's starting to work on it. Meanwhile, Tempo Storm taking back the top shrine, making sure that they don't have an issue with Red Cannons getting a Dragon Knight, but Red Cannons are keeping the aggression going in the bottom lane, and it is paying off. It definitely is, and they are of course trying to burst these waves away as fast as they can. With multi-shot, Brightwing, and now of course Oriel's AoE, they have a lot of tools to make that happen. And they gain the slightly earlier level 4 talent because of the structural damage they were able to pressure onto the bot lane. If they can take down the fountain and break through the entire wall, it would really help them in sustained battles over the shrine. Yeah, making sure that you take out the towers keeps the wave slightly pushed in your favor, because those towers aren't killing out the minions in the same way that yours are, which enables you to have an easier time of holding on to that shrine, which then snowballs into you being able to make more rotations up, like we're seeing Tulin anchor in the bush, seeing when Fury is heading down to help out the teammates. Uther's going for a play to get the shrine, but really Tempo Storm are after their giants in the bottom lane. But so too are Red Cannons. They were able to get those to continue their aggression here in the bot, maybe trying to take out the well. Exactly, this is what they're aiming for first, and we already said earlier how much of an impact that can actually have if you can take it down. Good dodge on the hook, 4-man by Tempo Storm right now as they're moving in here, but that also allows, of course, the Red Cannons to take more control on the rest of the map. We have Sonya already fighting over up to the top and going for another shrine now, taking control, and therefore putting the pressure onto the mid lane where Tulin is trying to grab a Dragon Knight.
focused attack for Sonya. We'll see if that's followed up with a Poison Spear at level 7. That generally seems to be the trend with those two talents. No Hurricane, so no ability to have more of those whirlwinds to make sure that you're staying safe once the team fights come in. Red Canids and being able to control this bottom lane so well. Sonya's also holding onto the top, which forces Som to make sure that he can still delay this Dragon Knight, but he's a good target to do so because of his mobility and his long range with Shuriken.
There's quite a bit of pressure on Tempo Storm.
There is.
Especially with the Fountain falling at the bot lane. They are under a lot of pressure at the bot lane and also, of course, therefore, to an extent to the top. So far, so good for the Red Canids.
There is the Poison Spear for Sonya. What do you think? We're going to have a leap, or do you anticipate a Wrath of the Berserker pick?
I personally think that playing it safe with the Wrath of the Berserker would be the better choice here, but we have seen leap plays. Usually it's more when you're looking for a blow-up comp. I don't think that with this situation you can necessarily make it happen. Level 7 talent, on the other hand, of Johanna, I'm really not sold on it. It's by far the weakest cooldown reduction auto attack talent that we have on level 7. And I don't really think you get a lot of value compared to Conviction when you can simply engage and disengage at a much better pace. The only other player on Johanna that I know picking this talent is JPL. And after asking him why he picks it and trying to explain to me what the advantage is, he apparently himself doesn't even know he just picks it. That's at least what we got out of that last time.
Yeah, that 0.5 reduction just isn't the same as something else. Tyvex is chasing down, gets first blood, takes out Som. Genji is down, and that means that Cattle needs to fly out of here and fast.
Yeah, so this is exactly what we mentioned. Tempo Storm is the team all of a sudden that really has to make the plays here, and you can tell from the atmosphere behind us actually that the Canids are all of a sudden realizing, boys, this is doable. There's a lot of enthusiasm in their comps at this point. We can hear an extent of it, and they are hungry right now. They are saying, guys, we got this, we can make a play. And they're going for Fury, who was forced to go deep to try and interrupt and might die for it.
He went so deep to try to stop that, and now Red Canids, yes, they are not getting the Dragon Knight, but they're getting staggered deaths against Tempo Storm. Just as the members of Tempo would be back up, they lose Fury, and this is getting Red Canids further and further ahead. They can just get Dragon Knight once they get 10.
Exactly, they don't get the Dragon Knight, but they get the push in the mid lane. There's 3 heroes there already taking out Stitches, and Genji just doesn't have the pressure against it. So that's a wall forfeit and an early level 10 for the Red Canids that they can now use to get their first Dragon Knight in the game. Tempo Storm, I mean, they need skilly, they need to be careful here.
Well, one good thing for Tempo Storm is, first of all, they're able to get this pick on Vieira. There is Strafe coming out. This is Jay Shrita having 10, and Tempo Storm willing to go in, trying to get a pick, and losing June because of it without heroic abilities.
Ooh, I am really not too happy about what we're seeing here from the perspective of North America. The Red Canids, on the other hand, there comes a Gorge that is potentially a kill, but the Dragon Knight has been gathered. And so far, so good for the Red Canids. Yes, Johanna falls after that Gorge that we just saw, but the DK is still going to get some value.
There are a lot of little mistakes happening for Tempo Storm right now. That hammering not connecting as well. Tempo Storm do seem to be rattled, and it's understandable when you play versus Red Canids. If you fall behind, as you mentioned, they go crazy. They go nuts in how much they're yelling.
Yeah.
But Tempo Storm cannot let them get to that. They need to maintain their composure here. Yes, they suffered a bitter defeat, and one that they felt was nearly unjustified because they just did not execute their plans the way they initially envisioned versus Team Liquid. But this is the elimination match. They need to put all of this behind them.
Okay, this is what I want from the Red Canids. Play disciplined. Yes, you can let the emotions that you have after kills, when you see you have a lead, let you drive. It's something that you can feed off. It's something that you can use to your advantage. But don't overextend. Know where your limits are and take and go back before you give too much of leeway to Tempo Storm. This is what they have to do right now, in my opinion. But Fury connects the hook, and he gets the Gorge in. Here comes the isolation with a Mighty Gust, and that's the kill. It's an old shoot and try combo. Gorge and Gust being used to get isolation kills. And Tempo Storm is using that to get themselves back into the game and close that gap in experience that the Canids build up.
And the important thing for Tempo Storm is that they keep this momentum going. Those are 2 heroic abilities that were used, so they need to use the time where they are 5v4. They immediately go after Red Canids in the back. Emerald Wind trying to stop the Dragon Blade, but he has Divine Shield. Polymorph as soon as the Divine Shield goes down.
Som barely getting out of there. The Red Canids nearly winning a 5 versus 4 here, not losing a single target and about to kill Genji, who moves out on the last moment. But what was an impressive feat by the Red Canids. Now they are back on the map with 5 and they take the level 13 talent. So far, they are looking solid. 3 kills against 2, they still hold a level lead. And from a structural point of view, they're far ahead.
Sustaining through that was incredibly important for Red Canids. Tempo Storm was hoping to force some staggered deaths. They had used a couple of heroic abilities, namely Gust and Gorge, to get the first kill, and hoping to get the staggered deaths as the respawn timers get longer and longer. But not letting that happen is huge for Red Canids. That means they can keep all their members out on the battleground. They can still get mercenary camps to continue the pressure that they got early game versus Tempo Storm.
Yeah, and Tempo Storm they are now back in a position where they can say, okay, we got this, guys. Let's just play this calm, collected. We fell a little behind early on, but we can definitely make that comeback happen here and just outplay our opponent with experience. They are in that situation, but the Red Canids are still slightly ahead, and they are the force that currently makes the moves on the map. And once again, at the bot lane, we have pressure play. They want to go for another structure. They're moving in with a detainment strike. Gust already being used, so they're going in again, but just look at that. Another kill. Falstad is down.
Emerald Wind being used there to separate Falstad out when he wanted an aggressive Gust. It's almost like Tempo Storm just doesn't respect what Red Canids are bringing to the table. Hook is thrown. Nobody caught, all dodged. Red Canids gets another kill, Kaldor.
The level of disrespect from the Red Canids is insane. You talk to that team, and they're basically saying, yeah, we don't get too much practice, we play it by instinct. And their instincts are fantastic. We have players on their team, like Jay Schritter, who want to move to North America. He's currently doing everything he can to prepare for a move so that he can play in a major region. But at this point, they are an entire level ahead, and it is fascinating how strong they are when you consider how few practice opportunities they actually have to get to this level.
And consider what they get at 16. Psalm using everything he can to get away. Fury as Gorge, and will get someone behind the gate. Actually, just barely doesn't get Typex behind the gate. Brightwing shifts in, and again, things not going to plan for Tempo.
Tempo right now looks a little bit as if they are playing a complete one-trick pony style. If you don't get that Gust Gorge combo off, then they don't seem to bring anything to the table in team fights. So far, the Red Canids have been dominant. They're trying to do that once again. They're moving in. The Divine Shield is barely saving Falstad as we are seeing Liming firing from the side. Once again, the life funnel activated on Sonya. She burls through. Fury rushing away, everybody on the run and low, and that's going to be another Dragonite for the Red Canids.
Yeah, Red Canids were far too close to 16. Tempo Storm did not want to deal with that, especially when they had to use Divine Shield. They don't have Gorge, they have to get back, but Red Canids, with all of the pressure that they had put into the lanes, already had both of the shrines as well, so they're able to get Dragonite off of that aggression. So even though Tempo Storm didn't lose anybody, it is still a team fight win for Red Canids because they were able to get not only their 16s, but the Dragonite.
They're splitting on the lanes. I'm not sure if I like it. I see what what they're trying to do here, but with 16 talents, they can definitely force a keep at this point. So they think, I really feel they should commit to a keep with this. They have a Dragonite, they have a 16 talent, and instead of going for the keep, they're trying to open up additional walls, and they had a hero up at the top lane, Brightwing, who now joined the rest of them. But that was an opportunity, and a big one.
Yeah, fear may have been the Gorge. Beautiful Iron Skin. Keeps Johanna from being hooked into the team. They're going to use Blessed Shield and go right in for this fight. Toonlin's using it, buying some time for Typex to get on top of this keep.
Yeah, Falstad flying in, trying to Gust. Nice, pull him off. Great play by Brightwing, but Cattle gets the Gust off after all. Oriel is down after the hook Gorge, and that's a double kill. Johanna also falling, and Tempo Storm is all of a sudden trying to turn things around here. Psalm nearly dying, but the Divine Shield saves him.
There was one reset and then a second, 2 kills. Finally, Tempo Storm gets a break, and they need to use it. They take out the keep. They can start to get mercenary camps. They need to get some pressure onto the structures of Red Canids. There is still 36 seconds before Sonya is back.
Tempo Storm has a lot that they can do now. They can get structures and they can get camps, but Red Canids, they made a mistake here. When you are an entire level above your opponent, you have a talent lead and you have a Dragonite, that has to be keep. You're already through the fort, you open the wall, and you have the opportunity to move in. Even if your opponent fights you, you have the talent advantage. Them moving down only getting the wall and then sticking around at the keep as Tempo Storm already hit 16 was a much bigger risk than trying to commit to the keep in the mid lane.
Yeah, the Dragon Knight was low enough in health that Tempo Storm just were not afraid of Red Canids in that situation. They also had a lot of their heroic abilities too, and finally the aggressive gust paid off for them. Trying to siege versus something like that aggressive gust, especially once you break down the gate, is so treacherous for a team. Hook, Gorge, Fury is trying to get out of here. Typhix slowing him down as much as he can with the spear.
That might be a mistake for Tempo Storm. They are in a bit of trouble. Here comes once again Falstad, goes for the gust, and that was sorely needed. Psalm in the back line here, nearly getting locked down. They are all moving away once again. Psalm just using that Dragon Blade right now for mobility, but that didn't work quite out as Tempo Storm intended it to.
Now, as you start losing forts, it turns out you don't have gates quite so close to try to gorge people back behind.
Distance to safety, and of course, as you said, the trap, you try to trap them behind the gate, and if you have lost all the forts, well, with the exception of the top lane, then this is going to become significantly harder.
That it is. Tempo Storm can still try to rely on aggressive gust, but not when it's used to try to get the team out of danger after the initial gust or gorge blow up of Genji and Li Ming doesn't take place. If they don't get immediate resets from that, trying to fight versus a double support just is not going to work out for them, and especially not now that Red Canids is powering up more and more. They already have 16, which means Nerves of Steel is here for Sonya. Just wait until they get to 20, and they have Ignore Pain.
Falstad is still top, and he's going to fly down very soon. There's a camp pushing for them. Sam in the back line. Brightwing not here yet, but probably going to make that jump soon. There we have her. So now it's a 5 versus 4. Falstad is still at that top lane, decided to not go for the fly-in and the aggressive gust. The defense already happened, so Tempo Storm knows their keep is safe.
And Tempo Storm's trying as hard as they can to buy back some experience with the top fort. Red Canids were hoping to punish Tempo Storm and capitalize on the fact that a lot of heroic abilities were used and the longer timer, cooldown timer that is for Dragon Blade, and it finally pays off for them. Red Canids take the first keep of the game.
They take the keep, but they're not out of this yet because that fight is still happening, and Falstad will fly down for it. Gorge has been used, but Fury is a bit isolated here. Detainment Strike hits in, they're jumping in, Catalyst there. But Typhix still looking good so far. The double support coming through. Tulin up at the front, trying to disrupt him as much as he can. Cattle is extremely low, but Typhix is isolated. Barely safe for now, but there comes the gust and the isolation happens.
Yeah, perfect gust there. And Sam waiting for his Dragon Blade for so long after Emerald Wind had been used was huge for that. But Tulin's hoping he can turn things around, finds a Sam with the Blessed Shield, but they're still fighting this 4v5. They lose Ariel, they're going to lose Brightwing.
Yeah, Red Canids. That was suicide, plain and simple. You have 5 versus 4, you know that there's resources that have been committed to, but at the same time, that turnaround attempt here, if they don't get the immediate blow up against the opponent, then it's just not happening. So instead of just retreating as 4, they now lost 2 additional heroes, that's 3 down, and even though they already dropped the keep, decisions like this one are an issue, and it shows just that they have less experience than Tempo Storm in these situations. The Red Canids have still a huge opportunity here, but they are starting to make mistakes because they find themselves in a spot that they're not that familiar with.
And that's the feeling of losing momentum in a game.
Yes.
The fact that they had a keep down, they were able to get a keep first over Tempo Storm, a team that they by no respects are expected to win against, and then start to feel that slipping away through your fingers can make you make those over-aggressive tendencies, those mistakes.
Tempo wants the core. They want the core right now. They have that 20 already, and now it's a 5 versus 5, and Tempo moves in. Jay Schritter with the strafe immediately. They're trying to get that kill in, but the shield is already gone. Tempo Storm, they want the victory, and the Red Canids are doing whatever they can here. They're moving in. Emerald Wind being used now too, but the core is down to 50%.
Excellent patience from Tempo Storm. The gust just now coming out to push away Red Canids when they find it, and Tempo Storm will take game number 1 despite losing the keep first, despite being down to Red Canids in the initial siege. Their patience and their experience pays off here.
But you can tell, I feel, that